Hello, it's Dr. Crystal Gifford here, and I came on today to share with you a little bit about my own journey of faith. And as advertised in the notes, this is not a conversation of how to's or what you should do, but this is a sharing of my story, my journey of faith, losing faith, staying in the void, and then finding my way back to faith. And my intention for this is simple. I feel a call to share because I've been through a lot of things in my life, and wisdom is my gift. And I'm here saying yes. And so, if any of you are feeling, as you catch this perhaps someday, if you're feeling lost or like you've had faith or you did have faith and then it got crushed, and now you really don't know how to rebuild faith into your life, or if you're sitting in the void perhaps where maybe nothing exists right now for you because what you believed, what you knew to be true your whole life no longer works. Maybe you're just on the other side where you're embracing faith again and you're just ready to to believe, to allow yourself to feel the lightness, the journey, the deliciousness of faith. So I'm here to have a conversation with you, a brief share of my story, and this will be available. And if you see it, then perhaps it has called you. If you have questions, write them. We'll see where this goes. I am saying yes to an act of faith for me. And so I'm going to share with you my story. So sit back, have your coffee, relax. This is a relaxing share, I hope. We're just going to let it come through. And whatever it is today, it is. It's all perfect. If it calls to you, continue. And if it calls to you again and again, that's why I'm putting it here. So, with all my love, I'm just going to share. And so I want to start with some premise. Most of you probably seeing this video have no idea who I am, and that's okay. I grew up a pastor's daughter. And so people would ask me, my name is Crystal Dawn. And so people would say, oh, were your parents hippies? And I always told them, absolutely not. My parents were super religious. We were that subsect of Pentecostal called apostolic, where it like gets stricter and stricter and stricter. And inside of all of that was like this crazy life. But I'll refer back to it a lot because it really formed and shaped who I was, but I wasn't able to see that then, of course. So growing up a pastor's daughter, being dragged around from church to church to church. He was a traveling pastor. He had his own church and he sang and he preached for everyone else in the 2-hour radius all the time. And being a young girl, I wasn't allowed to stay home alone. So my parents went, I went. So I had this journey of being a pastor's daughter. And what I can tell you about that season is the truth is it was a pretty good season of my life. I had some strict rules. They kept me close. But my parents were older and they were wise and they did a great job, I felt, as a child. But as all things do, my own journey led me to explorations. And at the age of 13, I started dating someone who became the father of my children. And now he's still that. And we were married for quite some time, I think 12 years. And I met him. He was a pastor's son. So of course everybody's like, oh, it's a match made in heaven. We liked each other. It happened. By the time I married him, we had already had a son, our son Andrew. And what I found is I had this journey of pastor's daughter into pastor's son. And I had this beautiful set of gifts that of understanding and empathy and knowing people. And I had prayed from an early age for God to give me the gift of wisdom because I saw this story about Solomon and how did he get everything? He asked for wisdom. And I said, I want wisdom because when you ask God for wisdom, you get everything. And so I made that my quest from a young age. And I was a seeker. So I want you to understand that my journey through that church was something else. It wasn't just my dad was a pastor, my father-in-law was a pastor, so I went. All of that happened on the external. But inside of me, there was this hunger, this thirst to know more. And this God they were putting in this little box for me and packaging and saying, this is what God is like. It didn't sit. It didn't fit. I was like, how can I be good? And my story as a young person was, how can I be good? How can I just be so good? God, you are good. I want to be good. How do I be good? And I would pray and I would seek, God, help me to see things the way you see them. Help me to use my hands to do the work that you would do if you had hands in this world, and use my feet to walk a journey you would take, and use my voice and my throat to speak your words and your truth. And from that time, I always was a seeker. It just didn't fit inside that little box that had been carved out for me. So I had this struggle thinking that I wasn't good because I didn't want that. Well, if I was good, I would just be happy with this little packaged religion like everyone else around me. But I couldn't be good. It didn't make sense. I had questions and I wanted to, but I understood that faith in God meant you believe all of it, and I didn't. I didn't believe it all. Some of it didn't make sense. It wasn't logical. The leaps took jumps, and now, just to preface that, I now understand that many of those leaps are man-made, and they were not what the religion, I don't think, intended originally. But it really just couldn't keep me. That particular model of faith wasn't able to keep me. And I stayed married until I was 30 years old. I had my first son at 17. We got married when I was 19. Um, we had our second son, Braden, at 20 when I was 24. And then when I was 30 years old, my husband and I realized, mostly I realized, he did not take it so well at first, but the patterns that we're teaching our kids didn't work for me. It was going to set them up for things that was going to squash their opportunity and what they could be in life. It just didn't fit for me. And so through a lot of determination, and as a mother, what I felt at the time was very much protecting my kids. I still feel harmonized with that choice. We make choices. Sometimes we're glad we did it, sometimes we didn't. That particular choice was a good choice for me. And what that choice meant for me in that season was that to leave the pastor's son. Now, I want you to understand that at this point, it's a very strict religion. We weren't even allowed to wear pants. So it was that strict. So you can imagine the rules on marriage. And so for me to leave him created a complete disruption in this church that expected us to be married forever. And so I went out with a bang. I didn't mean to, but I just, my presence leaving created an impact. And I didn't understand that at the time. So I felt like they were all attacking me, mad at me, like I'm a bad person because of the choices I made. And I internalized that. And so for 3 years of my life, while I had separated my kids from their family, I had all this mom guilt about not being able to make it work. Meanwhile, also my knowing knew that I had made the right choice for my sons, to separate them, to get them away from a small community that didn't have the space and the capacity to imagine the growth that they could be. They're now grown, by the way, 22 and 28 right now. And so I found myself in this void because I had grown up with this beautifully packaged God that had vengeance and wrath and love. And if you do well, you get the love. And if you mess up, you get the wrath. And so all I knew is, if you don't go to church, you don't get God. So, and for 3 years, and I remember the piece where I was a seeker. I was not just going to church for the sake of it. I was like, show me. How can I be even better? I want to be good. I want to be like you, God. And for me, whatever God was, because I knew I didn't understand fully what God was, but whatever that was, I wanted to be like that. And now I'm not even allowed to communicate. This was my story. So I left the church. My story was, I'm now not allowed to communicate with God because being in church now was so uncomfortable for me, being the pastor's ex-daughter-in-law. But if I left, I didn't have God. And so at some point, it was uncomfortable enough that I simply chose not to keep going. And 3 years, I sat in a void. And in that void, it was lonely, it was sad, it was scary, it was terrifying sometimes. It was also freeing because now there was no one dictating or mandating every move I made. It was also terrifying because now who do I talk to when I have a problem? And so what I found is after 3 years in the void, I started to peak, just like, is it okay? Is it okay to come out? Like, and I remember the conversation that I had with God at that time. And I said, I know. And I remember looking up because at that season of my life, God was always out there. I really hadn't gotten the full concept of like even the Bible tells us, and all good Western and Eastern philosophy support this, but it's within. But at the time, I had been so trained for God out that I would, okay, God, so, and I was so meek and so scared. And like, I know I don't go to church, but like maybe if I could like just talk to you a little bit, is that okay? Is it okay? Can I talk to you? And there was this, and as you can feel that, and I was terrified, but I was so desperate to re-engage, to have God back in my life. And I felt something. And that's something that comes up in us when we come back to knowing ourselves, right? That moment when we release ourselves of a story, when in an instant everything is made okay, not because some big daddy in the sky had a wand to wave and made it okay and everything suddenly in your physical world changed. No, but because you got it in your heart. The true messages that I was learning as a child growing up with the stories of Jesus, I'm growing up with Jesus, and Jesus is telling me I can be all these things, but the people around me are saying, hey, but you shouldn't want to be any of those things. So it was confusing. And going from all of that and stepping in and trying, and little step. And I found that, nothing happened. When I was like, can I just, is it okay if I talk to you? Nothing happened. I didn't strike lightning. Nothing severe happened. Nothing physically changed in my world. But in that instant, I was suddenly okay. And that's where I really want to talk to you today, is from that instant. When you realize whatever your story is just that. It's a story. It's a way of the divine, whatever it is that you listen, right? Because it can only be divine in our lives if we can hear it, if we can heed it, if we can absorb and embody it and allow it. And what is the divine to you? Whatever that is. If you found yourself in that crossroads where the faith you grew up with, and as a young lady, as a young woman, a young mom, leaving my faith entirely, I also left my social crew. My entire social life was built around that church and his family. And it was his dad's church. And my own family was upset with me and angry because why would you leave this perfect situation? They didn't know the whole story. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect. And there's no reason for me to share why it wasn't perfect. No marriages are, right? And I have no need or desire to share anything that might frame my children's father in a bad light. And so I stuck to that. And I said, I don't know what else it is, but one thing I know is this man is my children's father. And so whatever you guys have to say about it all, that's between him and me, how we address this. And in that like void, I started to get my own strength and understand that like, maybe I don't have to be. And then I tested it and I was like, hey, God, and nothing happened except I felt peace in my heart. When you make that commitment that it's okay. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's okay if you don't believe what they told you, because it's not about them. It's about you and your relationship with whatever it is that you called it, the divine, the God force, the life force, what that thing is that speaks to you that we all call God. if you feel a connection to that, it will call you higher. You don't have to be better. It's not about that. In fact, I keep a couple of vices in my life. Coffee, I drink all day as long as I want. Why? Because I want to remind myself that I was made to be human and to enjoy humanness. And if I make mistakes, all the people say, don't drink coffee. And I say, you know what? But if I drink coffee, it's reminding myself I don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to be perfect. And there's no divine energy anywhere in any text in all of mankind that asks for perfection from you. Some of them ask a lot of things, but not one of them asks for perfection. And so stop asking yourself for perfection. You don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to be the queen of anything. You can just be you in your wherever you are. If you're on top of a mountain, then sing and yodel. And if you're down, then get your climbing gear on. And that's okay. And it doesn't matter. And you matter enough to whatever it is that you want to put your faith in. If you want to put your faith in this earth, put your faith in this earth. If you want to put your faith in yourself, put your faith in yourself. But what you understand is faith is faith is faith. It is a feeling. It is something. It is hope given with real inspiration, some energy of that we're allowing hope to work. We have faith when we step onto a workforce every day and we say, you're going to pay me at some point. We don't get paid before we do the work. We're the ones who are asked to have faith, right? They don't pay us and say, we're going to have faith in you to show up for work. Workers haven't shown themselves worthy, but a company that has shown again and again it's paying its people, it gets faith, right? And we put our faith in that. Faith is not some mystical thing that you have to be perfect to exercise. It is a simple choice to believe in a moment that something or someone or whatever you're looking at can and will be everything you can imagine it to be. It is the trust that you have in your own ability to make a judgment. That if you're choosing to have faith in something, that there is something there that will support and carry you, whether it's God or the universal forces or the divine or your all the way down to the truth of your mental capacities and your brain and your reticular activating system that says, oh, I'm making this choice now. I'm going to ignore everything else and focus on only the things that give me that. That's your mind. You can do that with your mind, and you can shape your faith with your mind. You don't have to be directly in contact with your God to do it. That's whatever it is. You get there when you get there, but faith is something that's designed. I'm not a huge fan of the word hope because it feels like this empty promise energy. But faith, that means no, not just I'm hoping and seeing what happens, but it means I am making a decision right now to trust, not a hope. Maybe something will happen, but I have faith. I am making a decision right now in this moment to trust that I can and I am capable of, and I will and I do have faith, make a decision to put my trust in something that I know can carry me. It is the fire that comes up in the belief that something is real, that no one can change it for you, and that no one, no thing, no how, no, as they used to say, principalities and powers, no death, no angels, no anything can take from you because it comes from here. It comes from here. It does not come from out there. And so I'm going to wrap up with this. I get a little excited sometimes. But here's what I have for you. If you've had faith, but you find yourself in a dip or reclimbing that mountain or refiguring faith for yourself, take a moment and take the pressure off of it being a final belief system. And instead, allow yourself to tune in and say, well, what do I trust myself to know? What decisions can I make that I already know I can trust myself? And let's start there. Let's build faith on those little stepping stones that allow us to get there. And if you have a goal or desire or to strengthen faith in some divine, or to choose a faith in divine, or to find a divine you could believe in, or any of those things that are part of your faith journey. I invite you to just explore it. Don't judge it. Don't make any choices. Just play and have fun with that piece. But for faith, make the decision right now. I have faith. Whatever it is, find something you believe in. If it is, I believe my employer will pay me when I do this work, that's some faith. And that is that mustard seed faith. Those Bible readers out there will really love that mustard seed of faith. Don't try to figure it out and then go to your divine intervention. You choose from within yourself and you allow it and you be it, and allow whatever divine there is for you to see that in you and to be pleased, to feel it, right? To be attracted to it because of the lightness in your heart. And when you begin to believe in yourself, you'll begin to build those building blocks of faith. And I have faith that you can do it. Until then, I hope this little tower of faith shines a little light into your life today, tomorrow, yesterday, and all your days. Much love.